Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Future Live Musicians.
I'm Bobby.
And I'm Christina, and together we're DESTINEAK. Today, we're going to show you how to perform and DJ with Ableton Live 11. If you're a band wanting to run clicks and backing tracks, or a singer, instrumentalist wanting to perform with tracks, or a DJ that wants to play your new productions out with a portable, inexpensive setup, this tutorial is for you. All you need is a MIDI controller, a multi-output audio interface, and Ableton Live.
In this lesson, we're going to be using the AKAI MPD226 as our MIDI controller to launch scenes in Session View. We're going to show you how to start from an empty project, but we've also created a free live performance template linked below with the follow-along files to give you a head start.
We'll show you how to set up some effects and hands-on navigation for the AKAI MIDI controller, how to get some clicks, how to warp your tracks so they're loopable and stay on the click, and we'll also assign some samples to these buttons so you can play rises, finger drums, and vocal samples for moments in your set that you want to get off the grid.
We've used Ableton since version 1, and it's a solid beast. There's an infinite amount of ways that Ableton can be configured, but today we're sharing with you the way that we like to use it while playing live as a band. We've got a lot to cover in this video, so let's get going.
Let's just open up a default empty project, and then I'm going to show you how to put this thing together from scratch. In the links below, you're going to find a template which is empty and a follow-along template which has most of the information that we're talking about in this template right now that we're going to build from scratch. If you want to start there, go there. The first thing we want to do is we want to check with our preferences, and you want to make sure that your mixer and your MIDI controller is all plugged in and powered up.
If you're wanting to run clicks or separate monitor mixes, you will need a multi-output audio interface. Today, we're using our Midi MR18, which is a multi-channel input and output mixer. If this mixer is out of your budget, here's some other great options that will accomplish the same thing. Links are below. If you don't need clicks and you just want to DJ with this setup straight to the front of house, all you need is a decent audio interface with a stereo out.
Let's go to our look and feel. I like to bump this up a bit for live, and I like to make it about 110 or 120 for our zoom display. Mid-dark, this is kind of a nice setup for us. So let's go down to the audio tab, choose your Midi input for input and output. Let's check out our configurations here. So I activate all the mono inputs and I activate all the stereo inputs. Let's see the outputs, mono outputs, hit all those as well. I mean, if I want to use them, they're there. It's not really going to take that much more processing. So let's keep that at 44.1, high quality. A good buffer size for us is 256. That's kind of a happy medium. Just test tone, make sure that works. There you go. When we're choosing our input and our outputs for our MIDI controllers, this is also a control surface as well. Choose that, your MIDI controller, if you have that option. For port A, that's what we're going to be using for input. Choose your AKAI MPD226 and the same for output. And then down here for track and remote. So inputs, I got all the inputs. There we go. There we go. So that's it for preferences.
Use provided audio tracks 1 and 2, rename them Decks A and Decks B. Color them. Use provided MIDI tracks, name one click and the other samples. Create 2 fresh audio tracks and then rename them intro loops and drum loops. Color them. I like the color red for my master bus. Let's go up to the top of the audio tracks, select them all, and then go to the audio input and make sure that no input is selected. And then let's move on over to our samples instrument MIDI channel, and we're going to select MIDI in from our AKAI MPD226 on port A. So now we're going to cheat a little bit just to move things along a little quicker. Hopefully you've used the download link and you've downloaded our Ableton project folder. It will include the samples that are needed, and also if you go to the presets folder, we want you to open up the DJ XZone filter channel strip, load that onto deck A, and load another version of it onto deck B.
And then on the master bus, this is just to protect everybody, protect the club systems. We put a gentle limiter on it.
And let's go to our track volume sliders and take those down to -3 dB to give us a bit more headroom.
We'll see how our beats are hitting this master limiter, and then you can adjust that based upon your performance needs. And I have an EQ because sometimes your club system needs a little more top end on the overall, or you got to scoop out a little bit of the low end. It's just easy to do that on the master bus. That's it for our setup. Let's get into some instruments, and we're going to build a click.
Let's go back to the browser, hit the drum tab, and open the percussion core kit. That's going to have everything we need for our click track. Once the percussion core kit loads up, click in an empty slot in your click channel to create a 1-bar MIDI clip. Activate the MIDI preview headphone icon so that you can audition the clav and the woodblock high sounds. Those are the sounds that we're going to use to create our 1-bar click clip. So that's working. Let's head up to the browser, grab a channel EQ, take a little bit of the top end off, grab a low latency limiter. This is just to protect your ears when you're wearing in-ear monitors. And let's go ahead and adjust our ceiling on our limiter.
Go to the FLM bands with the MIDI controller project. Go to your samples. Shine is going to be the first one. And this is a 128, so it's really important that when you bring your tracks into Ableton that you know the tempos. It just makes it so much easier. Calling your name is going to be the second one. That's the same tempo. And when you love somebody, our stage mix of that, a different tempo. So we're going to show you how to get from pretty big tempo jump, and I'll show you some tricks to get that done. So let's get these warped so they're usable.
So a great new feature in Ableton Live 11 is the scene tempo column. So enter 128 for Shine, because that's the tempo of our first track. Let's go to deck B and select our first track and copy that information into our master scene launch clip in the master channel. Let's go ahead and do that for all the tracks in this Ableton set. Make sure to enter the correct tempo for each track in the new scene tempo column. Let's color these with some colors that you're going to be able to recognize immediately on stage. Remember, you're performing under lights and you want those colors to represent some of the emotions that match those tracks, or maybe some of the visuals or whatever it is that you're going to be using. Let's copy those colors and make sure that they match in the scene launch clips, just for a stronger visual representation on stage. Let's go up and select our first track, Shine. Double click that. That's going to open up Clips View. Let's go down to BPM and enter 128 and hit Warp. We're going to keep this one at Complex, and we're going to put a warp marker at the very first beat of that track. When you warp a track in Ableton, you just got to go through and check a few of the downbeats, maybe the beginning of a drop. Make sure that you check it in a few places in the track.
You can either use your metronome up here, or you can use your click channel. I'm going to use that right now. That's at 120. So now when I fire this off, see how it jumps into the 128 now? Because we used our new tempo column to change the tempo of the project. Calling a name, moving on. This is looking good. We're going to warp that track. This one's 128. We already punched that in because it is the project tempo we're currently working at. All right. So now this one, we might run into a little bit of problems. This is why we're using this track today, so I can show you that how we're going to work this out. Because there is some live guitar. And the live guitar kind of goes off the grid a bit. Yeah, I can feel it right now. Okay. So it's coming off the click right there. It's a little bit off. So let's find out where our big downbeat is. I keep running. Okay, so let's try this right here. That's a good spot for where that should kind of line up. So now what we did is we just grabbed this big downbeat. I keep running. Bam, and we put a marker on that and we drag that right to the grid of bar 26. That should kind of clean up this. Still out a bit, so let's just go back. Find out where this big drop is. So right there, boom. Okay, so that is lined up right on the beat. And I know that most of that. There we go. So sometimes you just got to find the big, nice big drop, kind of like, a top of a verse or a top of a chorus. Make sure that first marker right at the intro of the track. And then sometimes you just got to fidget around with where your next marker goes to kind of drag back and put it on the grid so that everything else in between lines up as well. Once that's kind of gridded, we're going to go here, we're going to go warp from here, and that's going to put a couple other markers in just to kind of tighten things up. And that's Calling Your Name is done. So let's go down to When You Love Somebody. This is going to be part of a bit of a click lesson as well. So let's move along real quick here. So let's find out where we are going here. Okay, so that's going to be the beginning of the downbeat. So right there, let's put a marker. And that's probably going to come back to here. When we're doing a little bit more of a freestyle jam, we're going to break this up, obviously, and we're going to play it live. And then Christina is going to get a click count before the downbeat of this guitar starts. There it is. So that's our intro.
Let's add a warp marker and drag that back to line up with the grid on bar 12.
Warp from here and see if this comes in. Hit the click again. So that's super tight right there. Boom. And let's just warp right to the end. There shouldn't even be any markers. This is already super tight.
So now that everything's warped and it's all feeling pretty tight to the grid, let's drag and drop Shine into deck A, go to the very beginning of it, make a loop for the first 8 bars, and drag your start and your end markers to match the beginning and the end of that 8 bars. Activate loop, hit play, and make sure that that loops seamlessly.
This is just going to play the intro loop. And it's just going to repeat till you want it to go into deck B, which we are going to start where this one leaves off. So right here, we're going to bar 9. This one, where do you think we're going to start it? We're going to start right here at bar 9. When we fire this one off, it's going to start where this one left. So boom, this one starts right here, and we don't even have to loop that. We just put the intro or the start marker right there. So right here, crack, crack, boom, that track drops. Christina knows where she is. So the next track, Calling Your Name. This has got a big, long intro. We don't want to use all of it. For this purpose of this tutorial, let's just loop that little section. See what that sounds like. Let's even go back one. There we go. That's good. Let's try starting at 10. That rise kind of gets you, everybody knows that this track is going to start. Boom, ba-da-dum, dum, dum. And what we're going to do is we're going to say we've already played most of the track. And 1, 2, 3, 4, swoosh.
We will be playing our When You Love Somebody intro sample live once we have it built into our sample kit. So let's start building our sample kit. And as you can see, I've got an EQ8 and a compressor and a limiter on this just so we can shape it if we need to.
Let's try loading up pad bank 1. So kick drum is going to be here because it's the easiest for me to play. That's feeling pretty good. So let's just start making those. I'm just going to drag in a bunch of samples and you'll see how I do it. When you're looking at the limiter, this is not hitting it too hard. It's getting compressed a little bit. So maybe just go with I usually go RMS on this, and then the makeup gain kind of like brings everything nice and forward. Okay, so there's our samples, and let's go to pad bank 2, and we know that we're going to throw. If you see this right here, that's where that sample is going to end up in C3 because it goes, the next bank is C3, and then the next bank would be C4.
Let's change to arrangement page where we have our When You Love Somebody intro sample. And then we're going to drag that into our samples kit as well. Just drag it right onto C3, and then you'll know it's on pad bank 2 on the bottom left. And don't forget to mute or delete that sample as well. Another really great tip to smoothing out the playback of your samples is to open them in the sample display editor and just use the fade out, add about 100 millisecond fade out on that sample. And then when it stops playing, it's not going to just end with a click or a pop.
And you want that to be in trigger, so it cancels out. Otherwise it would play it, keep continually playing. And have it in warp so that it stays with your track tempo.
Another really great tip is to add a reverb to that particular drum cell, especially if it's a long floaty sample like this and we want a long tail on that end without having to bounce the sample. So let's go ahead, grab a reverb.
So I throw that right on the cell, and then what that'll do is that'll play this sample through this reverb and it won't touch any of the other samples. So let's just set that up. It's a little too much. We want a nice long pre-delay so that sample comes through. Now when this stops playing, you're going to hear a little nice little tail so it doesn't just stop. That's pretty cool. Another really amazing feature that Ableton 11 has implemented into their latest release is the follow actions from the master scene launch column. So we're going to go over to the master channel and let's just give you a quick rundown on how we might use this. There's a lot of ways and a lot of flexibility for you to really spice up your set with this. So let's just grab our Shine track. I'm going to copy that and let's just move it down here so we're not messing up the rest of our work. Let's say that we want this scene to move into this scene hands-free because I'm playing a drum fill in 2 bars, we're just going to say, and we're going to move down to the next scene. Now, before we used to have to do this in our follow actions features in a per clip basis. So this would mean that you would have to do all these clips. And if you have a lot of clips in your set, you're adding those parameters to a lot of different clips. This is really going to save you a lot of time. So follow features from the master scene launch. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to open up the scene. We're going to say follow action. Let's just go to 2 bars just so I can show you quickly. And when we launch that from our master channel, this should move right down to here and play both. 5, 6, 7, 8. There you go. So let's move that around. And because we want it to go into the main part of the track and play the loop first, and because that sounded kind of dry when that came in, let's go grab a sample. Let's put that on our, I like to use this stuff for our intro loops or whatever, rises. And let's try this again. So 2 bars. This is going to splash in a downbeat of a cymbal. Let's try that. See what that sounds like. 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. So we like to use that when we're breaking up tracks. We might break up a track into 2 or 3 different parts where there might be a chorus and we want a delay or something to hit really hard. Then we'll put a program change for a delay in there. We'll show you that in a video that's coming up that we're working on right away. Yeah, I just wanted to cover that, follow actions. You could make this column a ton of different drum loops that would fit with, say, this style of beats. Just alter the drum loops a bit, and these follow actions could jump around and really create points in your set that would create some excitement. You can do that with different bass lines and stuff too. So yeah, have fun with it. Check it out. I just wanted to touch base on that, and it's a brand new feature, and we will be using it a lot.
So this is the exciting part where we get to map our AKAI MPD226 to Ableton Live for some hands-on control. Let's head up to the top right corner of Ableton Live and activate MIDI map mode. Everything's going to turn a light purple. Let's get started with navigation. Click on the scene down arrow in Ableton and press the far right 1/32 note button on your AKAI to map them. Click the scene up arrow and map this to the far left button, the 1/4 button. Click the stop button, cancel scene in Ableton, and map that to the stop button on your AKAI's transport section. Let's get our volume sliders and our channel strips mapped. And choose Deck A volume slider and map that to Fader 2 on your AKAI. choose Deck B volume slider and map that to the AKAI Fader 3. Enter the MIDI mapping browser in Ableton and click on Deck A and enter -3 for max. Repeat this for Deck B. This is important as it will keep your volume faders from going into the +6 dB range while using your MIDI controller. Back to MIDI map mode, and let's start mapping the channel strips. Let's go ahead and map Deck A XZone macro to the rotary encoder 1 on the AKAI. Then map EQ gain high to rotary encoder 2 on your AKAI. Map Deck B XZone macro to the rotary encoder 4 on the AKAI. These controls provide some DJ-style EQ filters and cuts for some better mix control. Map Deck B, the fade to gray macro, to slider 4 on your MIDI controller. Map Deck A, fade to gray macro, to slider 1 on your MIDI controller. Deactivate MIDI map mode to check that the controls are mapped properly. These are going to create some cool transition effects with EQs and delays. Here's some extra mapping tips to help you keep a visual while you're performing. Map the macro in the channel strip to the actual effect so that when the controller gets the message, it brings up what's going on in that particular channel strip. Let's go ahead and highlight Deck A and click the fade to gray macro, and then also click in the top of the fade to gray group effects and assign that to fader 1. And we're going to go and repeat that for Deck B, and we're going to map that to fader 4. Map volume slider 2 on the AKAI to the track status slot on Deck A. Repeat that for Deck B. To get a visual for the current track playing, lightly touch the volume fader to activate the track's status for each desired deck. Back to effects and back to track display mode. And that's per deck. That's a really nice way of kind of keeping your visual information available to you with just a quick little click of the fader. You won't even hear that out the front end. I've done it a million times. It's like 1 dB or so. You won't even notice that. On the AKAI, change the control bank to B. Select the hot knob macro and the effect in the channel strip for Deck A and map that to rotary knob 2. Repeat this for Deck B. That's going to allow us to see where the beat repeat is and what deck it's on. There we go. That's feeling pretty good. So let's enter MIDI map mode and select the play button in the scene launch slot for Deck A and map that to the 1/8 button on the AKAI. Repeat this for Deck B, mapping it to the 1/16 button. This gives us access to an individual clip launch so that you don't have to fire off the whole scene at once. I also like to insert an empty scene at the very top of our set. I color this white so that I can recognize it right away. I insert a test audio clip on Deck B, and I also insert a click clip with 1 MIDI note, and I launch this scene to do a quick test for all the performers and the AV team to let everybody know that we're ready to go. All right, so the whole concept of this is to bounce from track to track and be able to play a bit of samples, get off the grid, basically present your tracks in a rehearsed fashion to your particular audience. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Remember, this is our navigation: up, down, individual clip launch, scene stop, Deck A, Deck B, faders and delay for Decks A and Deck B, XZone style filtering, high EQ cut, XZone style filtering, high EQ cut, beat repeat is here, control bank B, and then we have our samples, and then our audio samples. So that's about it for this. Nice and simple. Let's try and get into a mix and see what we can do. So first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that everybody's got something in their ears. So there's a little bit of audio.
You got that? Yeah. Okay, cool. We're ready to go live. So, hey, it's time to go. Let's start the track. So we're going to use an individual track clip launch right here. We're just going to start. I'm going to EQ it a bit. So we kind of come in nice. Hi, what's up, everybody? And beat, repeat a little bit. Stutter it about, Let's get back. And then we're going to want to launch the other track. So here we go. Samples are a bit loud, but we'll tune that. So now I want to get into calling your name. So we're going to go down to the next scene and we're going to launch calling individually. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not perfect, but for a tutorial, here we go. And I'm going to get out when Christina starts singing. And then I'm going to show you how to go to the other. So we're going to know that we go to our other sample pad. And then we're going to go down an actual track. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When You Love. There you go. We did it. And there you have it, people.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope this tutorial helped you out in your live process. Make sure to check out the other tutorials in our Future Live Musician series. We'll be releasing more Ableton tutorials in the near future, so watch out for those as well.
Future Live Musicians.
Let's go from studio to stage.